The chamber is dimly lit by flickering oil lamps. A young woman kneels, wrists bound, head bowed. The murmurs of the court fade as the high priest raises his staff for silence. Her crime? Adultery, or so the charge says. For men this might mean a fine or a flogging. For her it will mean something far worse. The scribe records each word on papyrus, sealing her fate in ink that will outlive her. Outside, a crowd gathers, their whispers sharp as knives. She will not leave this place as the woman she was. This is not just a story about one woman. This is the dark, merciless world of justice in ancient Egypt. A world where order mattered more than mercy, and where women who broke the rules paid the highest price. Ancient Egypt prided itself on being a land of law, guided by Ma'at, the divine principle of truth, balance, and justice. This wasn't a mere philosophy, it was the backbone of the legal system. Women in ancient Egypt were, by ancient standards, remarkably free. They could own property, inherit wealth, conduct business, even take legal action against men. But this equality had sharp limits. When it came to crimes of morality, especially sexual offenses, the law became a weapon. The Egyptian legal mindset saw female virtue not as a personal matter, but as a pillar of family honor and divine order. To violate it was to destabilize both home and cosmos. Adultery was the ultimate betrayal, not only against a husband, but against the gods who sanctified marriage. In ancient Egypt, a man caught in adultery could be beaten or fined. A woman? She could lose everything, including her life. Imagine a market square in Thebes, 1250 BCE. A nobleman accuses his wife of sleeping with another man. The trial is swift. Evidence is little more than testimony. The verdict? Death by drowning. She is bound and carried to the riverbank, the Nile's green waters reflecting the morning sun. Priests chant as her body sinks, her name never to be spoken again. Some punishments were even more brutal. Record suggests burning alive for crimes against the gods, a category that could include adultery. Burning was rare, reserved for making an unforgettable example. Perhaps the most psychologically devastating punishment was rhinotomy, the cutting off of the nose. Introduced formally in the Edict of Horemheb, it was meant to punish corruption. But over time it was used to mark women guilty of sexual misconduct. The act was symbolic, beauty and identity destroyed in a single stroke. In a society where appearance and status were intertwined, a mutilated face was a permanent sentence to social death. A woman stands before the crowd, held by two guards. The executioner steps forward with a bronze blade. One swift motion, and the crowd gasps. She will carry the mark forever, visible proof of her crime. Sometimes the ears were removed as well, stripping away the right to wear jewelry, a deliberate attack on femininity. Public flogging was common, but for women, the humiliation was intensified. Punishments often took place in marketplaces, where the condemned would be tied to a post, stripped to the waist, and whipped with palm rods. The blows left deep welts, but the shame of being exposed before neighbors was just as punishing. A widow is accused of cheating a merchant. She is dragged to the center of the square, the crowd jeering. Each strike of the whip draws a cry, not just of pain, but of humiliation. When it's over, her head is shaved, another public sign of disgrace. Shaving the head stripped a woman of beauty and status. In Egyptian culture, hair was not vanity, it was identity. Not all punishments ended in blood. Some women were condemned to a lifetime of labor, which could be just as deadly. Sentences could include weaving linen in temple workshops for endless hours, or being sent to work in quarries under the burning desert sun. The conditions were brutal. Food and water were scarce, and accidents frequent. Under the glare of the midday sun, a line of shackled women carries heavy baskets of stone from a quarry. Guards watch with whips in hand. The work will break their bodies long before it ends their lives. Enslavement stripped a woman of all rights. She became property, her life no longer her own. Rape was recognized as a crime in ancient Egypt, but the reality of justice depended on status. A noblewoman could see her attacker executed. A common woman might be ignored entirely. Accusations of seduction or witchcraft to entice men were dangerous. Evidence was often unnecessary. A husband or rival could ruin a woman's life with a single claim. A young servant is accused of seducing her master's son. Whether true or not, the verdict is swift: mutilation and expulsion from the household. She vanishes into the outskirts of the city, her future destroyed. Religion and law were inseparable in Egypt. To defy the gods was to defy Pharaoh himself. Women accused of desecrating temples or breaking sacred taboos faced punishments that struck at the core of Egyptian belief: denial of the afterlife. A woman could be buried outside consecrated ground, her name erased from monuments and records, a fate known as damnatio memoria. Without a name, she would be forgotten in both this world and the next. A priestess is accused of violating a temple vow. Her trial ends with a decree. Her tomb will remain unmarked, her body unprepared for the afterlife. Her soul, according to belief, will wander forever. Punishments were as much about warning the living as punishing the guilty. Public executions, mutilations, and shamings reinforced the authority of law. In a society where oral memory was strong, a single punishment could echo for decades. Mothers warned daughters, "Do not bring shame, remember what happened to her." The state understood that fear was the most effective enforcer of Ma'at. Egyptian law evolved over its 3,000-year history, but its harshness toward women in moral crimes remained. Compared to Greece or Mesopotamia, Egyptian women had more economic rights, but faced equally brutal physical punishments for moral failings. Where other cultures might imprison or fine, Egypt preferred visible, permanent consequences. This blend of legal equality and moral severity is one of the paradoxes of ancient Egypt. In the end, the law of ancient Egypt did what it was designed to do: protect order, preserve appearances, and punish those who disturbed the balance. For women, the message was unmistakable. Virtue was not simply a private matter, it was a public duty, enforceable by blade, by fire, and by shame. We do not know the names of most who suffered. Their stories were not carved into stone. They do not stand in grand reliefs along temple walls. They exist in scraps, on broken ostraca, in faded papyri, in the silent testimony of unmarked graves. But the silence speaks. It tells us that cruelty, when dressed as order, can hide in plain sight. Imagine the young woman from our opening scene, her fate sealed by a few words from men who believed they were balancing the universe. To them, punishment was justice. To her, it was the end of a life that might have been ordinary, joyful, and long. And that is the harshest truth history offers. The greatest tragedies are rarely the grand spectacles. They are the ordinary lives quietly erased. For thousands of years, the Nile kept its secrets, washing away footprints and blood alike. But memory returns like the flood. We remember them now, not as criminals, not as cautionary tales, but as women caught inside a machine built to protect order at any cost. A machine that mistook fear for balance, a machine that called itself justice. Perhaps the final punishment was never the whip or the blade. Perhaps it was the certainty that the verdict would always be the same. This was Gallows Archive. If you learned something in the shadows of history tonight, stay with us. There are more doors to open and more names to remember. Like the video to help others find it. Subscribe for more dark chapters from the past, and tell us in the comments, which punishment shocked you the most, and why do you think fear so often wears the mask of justice? Next time on Gallows Archive, we follow the trail of a punishment that turned the human body into a warning sign, and a kingdom that perfected the art of terror without ever speaking its name. Until then, keep your lanterns lit.